that were made at the time of lockdown, June, everybody was expecting India to shrink by about 11%, 10 to 11%, and so in comparison to that, to recover 4% out of that is quite substantial. But also we have to see that our economy, when COVID hit us, we were the weakest. It was the weakest moment in our recent economic history. It had been 16 quarters of deceleration, unlike the West or the US, for instance, who were on the upswing at that point in time. So we were hit, and as you can see from the new revised estimates that are showing that 1920 fiscal was actually much worse than was originally projected. Originally, it was supposed to be about 4.5% growth. The new first revised estimates is showing it's about 4% from the earlier 4.2. So we had already, brought it down to 4.2, and now it is 4. The second and final revised estimates are going to tell us perhaps maybe even lower than 4%. So 2020 was a very, it was the lowest as far as our economic history is concerned in recent times, from going from a growth of about 8% in a quarter to, going down to about 4% or under 4%. However, from there, from what we are seeing now, there is a very, very substantial uptick in the economy.
Yeah.
You are seeing from 24% shrinkage in the first quarter. You've seen 7.5% in the second quarter. For the full year, RBI had predicted that in quarter 3 and quarter 4 we are going to be in the positive territory. Only then we can recover this to about 7.5% or 7.7% as the economic survey is saying. So if we are we've seen about 4% of improvement in the past 4-5 months, and if this acceleration in the economies does take off,
would you say this acceleration has taken place in the kind of figures that we're seeing compared to Q1 FY21 to the figures that we're seeing right now? Perhaps it's because of the multiple levels of fiscal stimulus that was provided by the Finance Ministry?
So from all the surveys that we are seeing, about 20% of the people are saying that they have benefited from the Atmanirbhar Bharat package. Many of the people, especially in the medium, small enterprises, they have not been able to benefit to that extent. And so it is very critical that, as we were saying, that our economic growth starts moving from rural India to urban India. That's one very crucial point. The second is that our economy, which was open in the manufacturing sector, now starts to open in the services sector. Services sector being a majority of our economy. Once the service sector takes off, you could expect this to start firing very, very rapidly, because service sector, impact on the economy, on job creation, on income generation and economic growth is far faster than it is in the manufacturing sector. So if for instance parts of the service sector start opening, so that change has to happen. It has to happen very fast. Rural to urban growth has to start moving, and manufacturing sector to services sector, that has to start taking off for us to be able to go into the positive territory even in the second half of this fiscal.
That's very interesting. Let's also go across to my colleague Aishwarya Paliwal, who is standing by in New Delhi outside Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's residence. Aishwarya, it is a big moment for the Finance Minister. I don't think that when she took over as the Finance Minister, she would have ever imagined she would be facing an unprecedented economic recession like the way we are seeing on the back of a pandemic. I mean, this is an undaunting task in front of her today, needless to say.
Well, definitely. Let me tell you, Cheti, I am not standing in front of her house. In fact, I'm standing right in front of the Finance Ministry. This is where we expect Nirmala Sitharaman to come around 8:50 today. She will go inside. She will meet with all the officers. She will meet with the CEA, and then she will come out. When she comes out, she will have the budget documents in her hands. They all will be standing here, and then along with MOS Anurag Thakur, and then she will proceed towards the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Today's budget will be be a budget which has never been seen before. And from what we understand from our
We
sources,
also have
within the
Pradeep
ministry,
Multani,
a
Senior
lot of
Vice President,
emphasis
PhD,
would be
Chamber of Commerce and Industry, joining us. Rakesh Nangia continues to be with us, Chairman Nangia Anderson India, Dr. Jayjeet Bhattacharya, President of Center for Digital Economy Policy Research, and of course, Rajiv Dubey, the Managing Editor of Business Today magazine, is here with me in the studio. Let's take this across first to Pradeep Multani, who's just joining us, Senior Vice President, PhD, Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Pradeep, I know, you are a very strong industry voice, but if I could just ask you to leave the industry voices aside and speak of national interests first, and what would you like to see the Finance Minister give a boost to in the larger national interests, and not just in the interest of India Incorporated? What would be the priority be?
Sure, thank you. You see, firstly, I would like that the budget should come up with a growth formula that is built around jobs. There is now enough data to show that a significant number of jobs were lost during the pandemic,
Yeah.
and that some of those still in jobs have seen a fall in incomes, with the poor affected disproportionately by both.
Yeah.
So we must focus on jobs growth. The second thing is that, we should continue with the expansionary fiscal stance in the budget. There should be a lot of spending, spend liberally, and forget about the fiscal deficit for the moment, because we need to generate demand and make the economy, boom up again. Another thing we would expect for the general public is, we should strengthen and ensure stability of the financial sector. Let there be nothing to unsettle the wonderful mood which has been generated by the economic survey expecting 11% GDP growth, or IMF saying 11.5%. We should also put a lot of budget into the health sector, because especially for COVID-19 is there. The more we spend on it, the earlier we will get, if we inoculate everyone at the earliest, I think the economy will bounce back at the very, very, very earliest. And lastly, what I would also like to say is that whatever is needed to revive demand, put money in the hands of the public,
Yeah.
so that public spends more and generates demand. I think that would be absolutely wonderful.
So he's of the opinion that impart a large fiscal stimulus to the economy, even if it is belated. Dr. Bhattacharya, we've been speaking about hands in the money of the end consumer, and that remains to be the top focus throughout, because unless and until there is disposable income, you are not going to see a revival of the economy, because it's largely dependent on spends. And even on the budget side as well, expenditure is going to be the top focus, regardless of the fiscal deficit targets being widened, and that should not perhaps be the concern of the finance minister, is what I'm picking up collectively from all of you.
Jyoti, was there a question to me?
Yes, that's right. Jayjeet, on the fiscal stimulus to the economy, even though it is belated, the fact that fiscal deficit targets should not be a concern for the finance minister, and that is a unanimous call coming in from all our panelists today. If you could just put that into perspective as well for our viewers as well. Sure. And the sectors, Jayjeet, where you would like to see, in order of priority, the spends come in for.
Sure. So, Chaitya, in terms of the fiscal deficit targets being breached, it's almost like a patient who needs immediate steroids to be injected in. We all know steroids is bad for the health, but when you need steroids, you need steroids. You can't say I will not have steroids because in future my health will be badly affected, because there will be no future unless you take it now. And similarly, if we don't have the breaching of the fiscal deficit in a significant manner, we will not have the firepower to actually create the jobs, the infrastructure, providing relief to the people and the MSME. We will not have the firepower to do any of that. So clearly, there is nothing sacrosanct about the fiscal deficit target. We need to breach it in order to fund the immediate requirements that are there, which is creating the jobs and infrastructure and so on. And in terms of priorities, I strongly believe, as I'm mentioning again and again, that in terms of spending, infrastructure is extremely important. As your graphics showed, the road development on an annual basis has plummeted massively from about 20 or 30 kilometers to less than a kilometer a day. being constructed. And clearly, if we are able to bring road construction back on track, there will be significant amount of jobs created. There will be significant amount of money being pumped back. I think also creating the bad asset bank will be important, or the bad bank in that sense will be important in order to bring the financial sector back in health, and ensuring that the banks have the capability to start lending and start that vicious cycle, the virtuous cycle of being able to pump in more money and growth coming back again. I think I would put bad banks as number 2 out there. The third part is actually healthcare. Along with the healthcare, I would also call the COVID industry in that sense.
Yeah.
If you just look at the vaccination industry, it'll cost about 1,000 rupees per person total in terms of
Okay.
including the cost of vaccine and delivery. And 1,000 rupees into a billion people is 1 lakh crore rupees being pumped into the economy. Unfortunately, all of this is made in India. It's Atmanirbhar vaccine, and therefore the money stays within the Indian economic black box, and that will clearly have a multiplier effect. So healthcare needs to be another big focus, and it'll happen any which ways, because that's also the duty of the government to make sure that vaccine is rolled out very, very efficiently. Third thing which keeps getting missed out because we are being short term is expenditure on human resource. I think there was a fantastic policy, the education policy that was rolled out. I think it needs to be backed up by significant funding to be able to create the human resource we need to power us into the growth that I strongly believe this decade will bring in for India. I think this decade will define that India will become a breakaway economy, or it will never be so, because we will lose the demographic advantage. And so if we don't start spending back into education right now, which will also give employment to jobs and all the ancillary industries around education, will also create the fodder to be able to grow in this particular decade. So I think those are some of the few high priority areas that I would like to hear about.
All the spends that we're talking about, Siddharth Modi is also with us. Siddharth, we've heard what the spends are. In fact, Pradeep Multani mentioned it, Dr. Jayajit Bhattacharya mentioned it. Everyone's talking about a fiscal expansion, not worrying that much about the fiscal deficit targets for the government as well, because this is not a year that you really look at fiscal deficit targets, because it is an unprecedented year. My question here is, you are talking about a push in infrastructure, in agriculture, in healthcare, in SMEs, in MSMEs, in job creation, and what have you. What about the revenue side? What is your expectation? Because up until now, the government has been banking quite a bit on the taxation revenue as well. But if I could ask you to, give us a sense of where the sense is with the non-taxation revenue as well, because we've seen divestment targets not being met with. How then do you see the revenue targets going forward?
So Chaiti, I'll take few things also earlier mentioned. I think, in my personal opinion, I think it's a function of several things taken together, right? Meaning, we need to look at, we keep talking about, development, meaning at the end of the day, that's the basic. So, when we talk about development, how are we going to encourage development? We are going to encourage development by creating some reforms. We are going to look at certain laws, trying to make reforms in the law, which government has done a wonderful job, I must say. But, we require a more reforms, because at the end of the day, if there is a development, there will be job creation. It is all linked with each other.
No, that is not what I was asking. I'm going to take this across to Rajiv Dubey as well. Rajiv, I'm talking about the revenue front as well. How do we ensure that there is an expansionary budget that we're all talking about? Everyone is saying spend in infrastructure, spend in healthcare, let's make sure the GDP gets back to normal, put money in the hands of the end consumer. Where is this money coming from? Because on the taxation front, we are also then again expecting the government to bring down the direct taxation, including the indirect taxation. So are we then banking on a non-taxation revenue and looking at the disinvestments of the like of Air India, BPCLs of the world, which again fail their targets? So how does one end up getting into this balancing act of sorts?
So see, roughly if you look at it, Chaiti, between corporate tax, income tax and GST, we are about even about 18 or 20% of the collection that the government, and the shortfall that we are seeing this year is largely on the corporate corporate tax front and also on the GST collections front. That is where the shortfall we are experiencing. If we can ensure regular compliance even in these areas, you could see the impact of this as you are seeing in GST currently. The GST, if you see last 2 months, 1,15,000 crore, 1,20,000, almost 1,20,000 crore this year, this month in December. If compliance can be ensured and the economy, takes off in the manner in which it is expected to, we will not have the kind of tax concerns that we are having right now. The concern that we are having is because of the absolute shortfall of 6 lakh crore, and that 6 lakh crore, if is made up by the regular collections, even from GST as was targeted, from income tax as was targeted, from corporate tax as was targeted, from excise. Government has made up for all these shortfalls by increasing the excise. And on especially on fuel. So if the collections in these 3 areas do match up, you could expect the cut in fuel taxes at some point in time. But unless the economy takes off, unless manufacturing takes off, unless services takes off, as I'm saying, services is very critical. The opening up of the service sector is absolutely critical. If you look at aviation sector, it is still 60% down from last year.
Absolutely.
60% down. So you do not expect that kind of revenue generation unless unless the service industry. So as we were saying, from manufacturing to services, the growth has to start happening there.
Rajiv, I'm sorry about that interruption right there, but we are taking a look at those live visuals that are coming in on our screens right now. That's Anurag Thakur performing a puja right before the budget speech. There you go. You can see these live visuals coming in. Anurag Thakur right there, Member of Parliament and Minister of State for Finance and Corporate Affairs right there performing a puja at the moment. Take a look at those visuals. Sorry about that interruption. We just had to show you those live visuals right there. Of course, Anurag Thakur making a very sincere prayer out there, Rajiv. Well, you were talking about the services sector. You were talking about how
I'm
it
saying
needs to
that
take off.
it is absolutely critical for tax collections to start shoring up unless the services sector starts opening and services sector starts to generate revenue and pay taxes, the tax collection will be short. So it is absolutely critical that services sector, and also as we were saying, the growth has to move from rural economy to urban economy, and unless that happens, that's going to be again challenged. So these 2 areas are very critical, and then short-term measures. Government has been, there has been discussion within the government about raising a cess, the 9th cess, which could be the COVID cess, as we are saying, as is being, is being named externally. I very much doubt if it's going to be called the COVID cess, but they might call it, revenue generation cess, or maybe something of the nature of growth cess or creation of infrastructure cess or whatever.
Basically, it's just a way to make revenue, of course.
Yeah, exactly. So they might find ways of shoring up revenues to some extent through some of these cesses, but they cannot be very substantial. The cess collection
Rajiv, I'm still
already,
not seeing.
cess collection already is 2.7 lakh crore.
That's true.
Now, how much more can you charge and there are already 9 cesses. One of the reasons why GST was brought about was to remove the cesses.
Of
To
course.
remove all those 40 taxes and cesses into something more manageable.
Yeah.
So,
But that is the thing I'm talking about. You have complicated the GST system so much, and you've got these, if you count 0 as a number, there are 5 tax slabs, right?
Yeah.
And you were never supposed to have these 5 tax slabs in the first
There
place.
were
And the
supposed to be
highest,
3.
yeah, and the
Just 3.
highest one here is 28%. Your direct taxes are very high. It's a lot of burden on the Aam Aadmi right now. I know this is the work of the GST Council and not of the budget, but can we expect some sort of a direction at least coming in on that front?
So
because people want the easing
compliance-
of GST.
So frankly, compliance, opening up of the economy and ensuring that the services sector starts to fire are very critical for if services sector is 56% of our GDP.
Yeah.
You know, we cannot have a sleepy services sector or closed service sector and expect that our tax collections will be high. Service sector is very critical.
Yeah.
Service sector must be opened up fully for our tax collections to shore up.
But now also a little away from the taxation front, because that is the taxable revenue part we're talking about. The non-taxable revenue, Rajiv, what is your sense? How do we raise money through non-taxable revenue? Because disinvestment has been missing targets year after year.
This year, disinvestment, the target was 2.1 lakh crore, and we are somewhere around 15,000 crore. So it's very
low.
Very substantially lower than what was targeted. So for disinvestment, it's important that things like Air India, which was planned for this year, it didn't happen. Many of these disinvestment opportunities have actually gone by because we have not been able to either prepare that organization for disinvestment for whatever reasons, whether it was labor trouble or objections within the ministries. But very often the disinvestment does get stuck because these are fiefdoms. These are fiefdoms of ministries. These are fiefdoms of politicians, and the politics and politicians and the ministries themselves don't want to give up on these. And for some reason or the other,
Cutting straight across to Anurag Thakur, coming back to you, Rajiv. Sorry about that interruption.
जनता की उम्मीदों के अनुसार होगा। सबका साथ, सबका विकास, सबका विश्वास मूल मंत्र के साथ चलने वाली मोदी सरकार ने पिछली महामारी के समय भी आत्मनिर्भर पैकेज देकर भारत को एक नई दिशा दी, महामारी से बचाया भी और भारतीय अर्थव्यवस्था को तेजी के साथ पटरी पर भी लाए और मजबूती प्रदान कर रहे हैं। पूर्ण विश्वास है इस बजट में भी हम जनता की उम्मीदों पर खरा उतरेंगे और आत्मनिर्भर भारत बनाने के लिए और विश्व की अग्रणी इकोनॉमीज में एक भारत लगातार आगे बढ़े, इस दिशा में हमारा लगातार प्रयास रहेगा।
Anurag Thakur right there, going on to talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas budget. We also have Pradeep Multani with us. Mr. Multani, just a sense from you, how successful really is Atmanirbhar Bharat? Has it been that successful, and what more would you like to see?
Mention about how we can raise revenue. You see, the government can raise revenue that they should establish a development finance institution for finance mid-sized companies in India. Such a DFI can raise money from sovereign wealth funds and other long-term institutional investors.
Right.
Also, utilize a small part of foreign exchange reserves, USD 15 or 20 billion, for setting up and lend to Indian industry at, say, 6% in rupee terms for new projects, substantial expansion. The tenure for these loans should be 8 to 12 years. Apart from this, we can raise revenue by reviewing capital adequacy ratio for banks. The capital to risk weighted assets ratio to be maintained by banks under the Basel III norms is lower than norms stipulated by RBI. These may be reviewed as it may help release capital for lending purposes.
You're saying it's okay
Also,
if the CAR is low for a couple of years, but ensure that the lending happens?
Absolutely. And also launch Build India bonds denominated in INR to raise global capital for a 20-50 year tenure at very low interest rates prevailing across the world for financing economic and social infrastructure projects. I would also suggest government may consider divesting its stake in the public sector banks to enable banks to raise capital from the market. Government can look at having 26% share as a floor and bring in the concept of a golden share to exercise control over critical decisions. This will help save government money. So these can be,
Apologies about the interruption, Pradeep, but Anurag Thakur is leaving from his residence. Take a look at the live visuals that are coming in. I just want to draw your attention to the live visuals that are coming in at the moment. 11 a.m. and when the budget speech begins. And right now on your screens, what you see is Anurag Thakur leaving from his residence. All right, going back again to Mr. Multani, I'm sorry about that interruption right there. Mr. Multani, we're talking about bank recapitalization as well. You were
But
talking
how-
about, raising money from the non-taxable revenue, and you were talking about how lending must be increased. If you could throw the light on the other pointers as well. But first up, on recapitalization of the PSUs, which is very, very important. Rather, I would like to call it urgent, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and perhaps encourage them to lend without the fear that every loan is going to be probed by the investigation agencies, and that's the fear in the banks at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should also set up a national asset management company, Bad Bank as a new special purpose asset management company that will take over stressed assets from the banking system and focus on recovery or rehabilitation of these assets. With, I feel we can definitely generate a lot of money from these suggestions, and they can be liberally, given into the market so that they can't really bounces back. The size of the pie really grows up. That is very, very important to revive demand.
Mr. Multani, we are seeing the bias against imports. Do you think India needs to somewhere re-engage with the world and stray away from the kind of protectionism that we've seen, enter more into bilateral trade agreements as well, and perhaps that would give the necessary amount of fillip that the economy requires?
I would say we have to link this with that Atmanirbhar Bharat concept. You see, Indian industry wants nothing but a level playing field.
Yeah.
In China, the land is at practically zero cost. The rate of interest is zero. Electricity cost is low. Logistic cost is low. I think for the 10 sectors where the government of India has introduced performance-linked incentives, I think India needs that for majority of the sectors. If we can have that level playing field, after that, one can bring in imports and things like that. Because otherwise, if we get in cheap imports, it will not let the Indian industry grow.
That's right. Let's take the Atmanirbhar Bharat point with Rakesh Nangia as well. Rakesh Nangia, how successful has been Atmanirbhar Bharat? Do you see, it's a great promise. It's a fabulous intention as well. It's a great promise in the right direction. But when it actually comes to the implementation, what is your sense of how successful Atmanirbhar Bharat has been really?
If you see the businesses are concerned, SMEs are concerned, MSMEs are concerned, 40 to 50% of them who got this type of relief from this Atmanirbhar,
Okay.
they have benefit out of that.
Okay.
But the point is this, let me tell you, was this a complete financial assistance? Answer is no. And I must tell you, give you a small interesting figure. The fiscal stimulus, which came out of Atmanirbhar, was just 1.8%. If you see the other country worldwide where the fiscal stimulus came, was much, much more higher. So Atmanirbhar have been able to assess, defer the liabilities, reduce the interest liability, defer the interest, defer the loan repayment is concerned, but to stay in business, to avoid delinquency, to avoid bankruptcy in the MSME sector, which we are likely to see in next quarter or next 2 years. This should be extended by the government so they stay afloat. So Atmanirbhar, though a big boon, but partly it was increasing the cash flow or accelerating the cash flow in terms of refund, which was not technically Atmanirbhar assistance in any shape was concerned. So, but the real assistance comes when you see they don't get burdened with the liabilities are concerned, whether they get a reduced rate of interest is concerned, and give them a good space to repay the money is concerned, rather than falling, they fail, and you have a much more bigger problem in terms of unemployment, fall in confidence in the economy, and other associated problem is concerned. A good case of Atmanirbhar, we can't deny that 20 lakhs crore was not a small amount of money as compared to a decent amount of money as compared to the GDP of the country is concerned. But was it an assistance? Answer is really no. Yes, it did accelerate the cash flow back into the pocket of the businesses and MSMEs and SMEs, including individuals.
Speaking about the SMEs and MSMEs as well, Mr. Multani, what is the kind of rescue plan you'd like to see for the MSME sector at this point of time? Because one needs to draw up a plan that helps the MSME sector also reach the pre-slowdown production levels, recover the jobs that were lost as well.
Yeah, despite being the steering force of Indian economy, country's MSME sector was among the worst hit due to lockdown induced by coronavirus, leaving a severe dent on MSMEs. You see, we would suggest inclusion of proprietorship and partnership MSMEs under the new corporate tax regime. Base corporate tax for existing companies has been reduced to 22% from 30% and to 15% from 25% for new manufacturing firms incorporated after October 1, 2019 and starting operations before 31st March 2023. However, this mandate does not include the proprietorship and partnership units, which constitute the majority of the MSMEs in the country. We suggest the government to extend this norm to the proprietor and partnership firms, which constitute the majority of the total number of MSMEs in India, given that they are registered with the GST. Apart from this, we would also, one of the biggest issues hitting the MSMEs is there should be reporting of delayed payments to MSMEs by corporates for swift payment to MSMEs. Chartered accountants, auditors should be issued guidelines to report all the delayed pending payment to MSMEs, and the government must release their funds at the very earliest. One finds many MSMEs have gone sick because of the payments being withheld by, I would say, CPSUs, PSUs, as well as big corporates. So some action needs to be taken on that front so that there's adequate liquidity in the hands of the MSMEs.
So that's another very big area of focus. Rakesh Nangia, on the taxation front as well, simplification.